I'm Hazel Mabry, and my partner is Jeanette Hurley. We are volunteers with the Oral History Program at the Clayton, Missouri Oasis Center. Rosalie McNearney has come to record her life story for her children and grandchildren. Good morning, Rosalie. Where would you like to start?
I think I better start with the day. I was born on February the 16th, 1921 in the city of St. Louis. I was not born in a hospital. At that time, I being the 8th child in our family, my mother had a midwife to deliver her children. That, by the way, that bedroom set is still in existence. One of my daughters has that beautiful bedroom set that all of us were born except one child. The last child was born in Malamphy Hospital in St. Louis. Many things happened in my life since then that I would like to record for my children and grandchildren. They are the ones who encouraged me, or started encouraging me some time ago, to write things down, because their grandma had a lot to have left for them recorded, but we never quite got around to having her do it. My mother had me at a time that there was a big tragedy in our family. As I said, I was the 8th child. There were 7 girls and 2 boys. And when I was around 2 years old, my brother, who was 3.5 years old at that time, darted out in front of a truck and was killed. This is, the reason I'm telling you all this is not to relate a tragedy, but to tell you why I turned out the way I did. I was the one who was consolation for my parents and my sisters and my brother that was the oldest in the family. And my earliest remembrance, and this is kind of hard to believe, I didn't realize that until way later in life, was of my mother rocking me. I was the one who was always being loved and cuddled by my whole family. Mother would sing and rock away, and I kind of learned how to cook even at that early age because my older sisters apparently were doing the housework while Mom was sitting there holding me and rocking me, which I kind of thought was kind of different.
You were her comfort.
I was her comfort. But anyway, I wasn't aware of all of this, of course, until later. And I just was always kind of treated as a special child. I just have so many things to tell you that I can remember growing up. There were tragedies like, well, they used to call it a cyclone. I remember a tornado. I remember Prohibition. And then, of course, the final straw was the Depression. And there are a lot of things to tell about all of those individual happenings, so maybe I'll tell you. Now, all of this happened before I was 10 years old, and it made quite an impression on me. We had a car at that time, I remember, it was a funny-looking car, and it had windows that you had to snap on if you wanted them closed. And otherwise, I guess it was kind of like a convertible if you didn't snap up the windows. I remember that because I remember my father taking me around, or all of us, I suppose, to see the devastation from the tornado. There were walls blown away.
1927, I believe, wasn't it?
Was it? I wasn't quite sure if it wasn't earlier than that, because I think 1927 might have been the Prohibition days, or maybe that was before. I'm not sure of those
No,
dates.
Prohibition was after that.
Was after that?
Yeah.
Well, wasn't the Depression in 1921? 1929?
29, the stock market crash.
The stock market crash. So all of these things, and I'm just a little kid, you know. But
Yeah.
But they really made an impression on me because, as I say, my dad took us around to show us, first of all, the devastation from the tornado, and then later it was, I can still see the barrels of alcohol rolling in the streets with policemen with axes chopping them open and letting this liquid, and I didn't even know what alcohol was.
Where
But
did you live at that
In
time?
North St. Louis.
Okay.
Always lived there.
What street, Rosalie?
Oh, I was on, we lived in a wonderful house on 2200 St. Louis Avenue. So we were near the ballpark, and that was kind of fun. You could hear the people cheering or rooting for the Cardinals and the Browns.
And the Browns.
And what ballpark was that, though?
Sportsman's
Sportsman's,
Park on Grand Avenue. We
Right.
weren't far from that. But anyway, let me see now. I was on the Tornado, and then I was going into Prohibition, which I didn't realize that was all illegal. I just didn't know why my daddy was showing me that, but anyway.
You want to tell your grandchildren what it was that was illegal?
Yes, it was illegal to make and sell alcohol at that time. That
Any
was
alcoholic beverage?
any alcoholic beverages.
Right.
And so the legal eagles had to go around destroying it so people could sell it or drink it or anything. However, I remembered them making a little what they call home brew. They'd make a little beer, and
Did your father make his
my
own?
father made some beer, and my father and mother were not drinker people, but I guess.
Oh, but if you had a big family, any
Had a big
parties,
family.
you wanted to
a
have
little home brew.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember helping him with that, taking some kind of a ladle thing and I don't know, lots of fun things.
Did he make soda also?
Yes, there was some kind of.
Root beer was
Root-
another
root beer.
favorite.
Root
Yeah,
beer.
root beer
That's what it
and regular alcoholic beer.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Sure.
Uh-huh. Then, of course, the Depression was horrible. I can remember seeing grown men trying to sell apples for a nickel on the street. Heard all about it, didn't really relate at that time to it being historical.
Didn't know why they were doing it.
I didn't know why they were doing that. And I guess I should say that later on, as I got a little more interested in these things through history, I have since prayed then for my own family, who have now grown up with everything they want and need. I wonder if they could handle it, if they had to go through depression. I just pray that they do, because it leaves a scar. Anybody in our
You never forget.
age, you never forget that.
But it's been a fairly good scar for this generation, ultimately.
You mean
Made
for-
us stronger.
us, yes,
Yes.
yes. It-
Rosalie, did your father lose his job during the
Oh,
Depression?
yes, uh-huh.
Where did
And
he
that's
work?
when I didn't see that automobile anymore.
Where did he
That's
work?
what He was an optometrist, and before that, he and his brothers had a jewelry store in North St. Louis. And I don't
What was your
really-
maiden name?
Rosalie Mary Ebeling, Ebeling. That was born. That was my baptismal name. When we lived on 2200 St. Louis Avenue, we lived near a public park called St. Louis Park. It's still there. And we could go there and use the swings. And in the summertime, they had some older girls. To me, they looked very old, teaching us crafts, and that was always fun, because we had to make our own entertainment. And anybody from that era would certainly remember the funny things you did just to entertain yourself. My children don't exactly like to hear the story about how we had to walk everywhere. They think we've exaggerated. But the school we went to was almost a mile away from our house. We went to a Catholic school called St. Laborious, which is no longer there. It was almost a mile to school. There were no cafeterias. We walked home for lunch. We walked back to school after lunch, and then we walked back home. So maybe that was a good thing.
It's probably why you've lived to the age you have.
I think so.
Good health.
I think that that's a really good thing that happened. I used to walk with the music professor, and he walked, his legs of course were long and mine were real short, just a little kid, and he would say, now you'll have to walk faster because in the summer we do this to keep cool, and in the winter we do it to keep warm, and I believed him. so I just tried to keep up. I kind of think I was just, my sister ahead of me there was 5 years difference now because I lost that brother. And she had a sister, my sister, just a year and a half apart, so they were buddies. And I'm on my own, which I find now was probably the way God wanted it to be, to teach me how to get along on my own. So everything works out for the best. Anyway, there were a lot of funny, wonderful things that we did, and places we went. We walked so we could save a nickel. Car fare, there were streetcars, and we'd save our nickel and walk any place we had to go. And then we'd have that nickel, and we laughed about it all our lives because then we could buy a pickle. And my sisters and I still laugh about that because those pickles in that big wooden barrel, you could get that, and oh, that was so wonderful.
Mhm.
I'm trying to not be anything but historical here, but there's so many fun things that happened.
Well, let's hear about the fun things too.
Yeah, we had a player piano, and I don't know if my children or grandchildren know what that is, and it's a roller, a paper roller of music and words that you put in this piano, and then somebody had to pump the pedals on the floor. Well, you know, I'm the youngest now, and so they let me pump the pedals. I'm on the floor, and they're all up there singing. It was fun, you know.
The words to the music were on the roll too, were they not?
Words to the music
Mhm.
were on the roll,
Yeah.
and that was fun. What else did we? Oh, I know what I did one time. I wandered away following a cat.
Mhm.
We didn't have any animals. Mother just wouldn't have any animals, and I just thought it'd be so nice to have that cat. So I followed the cat. I really don't know how far I went and how I got away at that tender age by myself. I followed the cat into a tavern. Well, the cat went in the tavern, so I went in too.
Probably belonged there.
Probably did. And of course, you know, you talk tavern then. That was a very nice, friendly, everybody knew
Neighborhood
everybody
place
in the
to go.
neighborhood place to go. And so
Did you get your daddy a bucket of beer down there
No.
once in a while?
Well, later when I don't know how come there was a tavern now that I think about it, because of Prohibition.
Might have become a restaurant or
I
something.
think it was
yeah.
probably a restaurant
Yeah.
called a tavern.
Yeah.
This is a long time ago. Anyway, so they all, of course, knew who I was, and my parents came to get me, and I must say they did scold me, and I never followed a cat again. Oh, there were, you know, those were the days when you could get, if you had that nickel, you could get on the streetcar. I remember going downtown by myself to meet my mother's aunt, who would take me to a movie and a Busy Bee for chocolate soda and wonderful things like that.
What was her name?
Her name was Carrie. She was my mother's sister. At that time, she was a single lady, a school teacher.
Where did she teach?
Oh, I was afraid you're going to ask me that. Public school. I don't recall what school she went to.
Did she live downtown?
She lived South St. Louis.
Oh, so she
We lived
probably
North St.
told
Louis.
her that.
So it was quite a trek there, you know. But it was fun, you know, the motorman would clang the bell and let people know we're coming, and it was exciting. You know, if the kids had just watched that movie of Judy Garland, Meet Me in St. Louis, they could see what that trolley looked like, and that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, incidentally, maybe I should talk about her parents. Would that be a good idea?
Mhm.
Because just to record this, my mother's father was Adam Moss. He was born in Rothenburg, Germany. That is a walled city, a beautiful city. I had an opportunity to visit that, and that's where he was from. Now this is at the time when the Prussian Tsar was threatening and getting into war. So my grandpa's parents sent he and his brother on a boat to the United States to get him out of the war zone at age 16. So what he did then, I have no idea. We have no genealogy on that.
Do you know
But-
the date of his birth?
Oh, no, I don't
No.
know that.
Okay.
Did he come to St.
He
Louis?
came to St. Louis because that's where he met my grandma, and she was from Germany, and her name was Louise Wiegand. Interesting about that. Oh, I still have her baptismal certificate. Now you're going to ask me the date. It's 1800 something.
As long as you've got the birth
I've got the
certificate,
birth
that's
certificate.
helpful for the kids.
And when my husband and I visited in Germany, we went to Rothenburg to see it, and we had our picture taken under the big sign that said Weekend on it over this shop. So that was kind of exciting. And that's the history I have of that. That
What
means-
was your mother's maiden name?
My mother's maiden name was Magdalene Moss.
M-O-S-S?
M-O-S-S. I understand that they cut off the Mossahund to make it Moss when they came to America. But they were wonderful people. I don't really, see, they passed away early in my life. I only have memories of maybe I should start over. My father's father was gone before I was born, and his mother raised my father and his 6 siblings on her own. And I have a picture of them, and I only remember seeing my grandma Ebeling once, and she had on a beautiful long black silk dress with a diamond stick pin right here. I can still see it, little diamond earrings. And she was very pretty, white hair piled on her head, very stern person. I only remember seeing her once.
Must have been a very special occasion that she was
It was
dressed like
Christmas.
that. Oh.
And I remember that because there was a artificial tree with the music box that went around. And I sat there just fascinated, and I think I had a cookie. I don't know. It was not a big occasion. It was just a special visit, I guess. And then my mother's mother and father, Adam and Louise Moss, I knew them better. My grandpa more than my grandma because she got sick. She died. I was still real little. But my grandpa kept me entertained by peeling apples to see if he could get it all done with the skin not breaking. That's entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd take me by the hand and walk me to the bakery and buy peanut coffee cake, and nothing ever tasted better.
What was the
That's
name of the
silly.
bakery? Do you remember?
I don't remember that. I didn't write that down. I just, might have been something like Mueller. I really don't.
German.
German. Yeah. So right now I'm kind of getting, so I think the parents lived in South St. Louis near Tower Grove Park and Shaw's Garden. We would go and visit them. Usually, I think it might have been a Sunday. And the parents and grandparents wanted to play cards and have their own visit. So they would send us off to the park to do what we wanted to do. And wasn't that a wonderful time of life to be able to go to the park and go in the music stand, the bandstand at Tower Grove
Parents not to
Park?
have to worry one bit.
Parents didn't have to worry, and Shaw's Garden was just beautiful because there were no fences, no gates, no admission, and Mr. Shaw's house was open for inspection, and we just had a ball. And I remember what did you call those lilies, those water lilies, big pads, you know. I kept wanting to jump on one of those. I kept thinking that'd be fun, but I never did.
Rosalie, do you remember what street your grandparents
Yeah, they lived
on?
on Botanical, 4100
Oh, on Botanical.
Yes.
4100.
Uh-huh.
Right
Yeah.
at the park.
Yes, right at the park. It was a wonderful way to grow up. But to get back to my mom, my mother told us let me see, Magdalene Moss Ebeling, okay. She met my father at the 1904 World's Fair. She sold lemonade there.
Oh, my.
And that to me is kind of exciting. If you think of the World's Fair and those beautiful shows they had, those buildings, the lights, and all the way they dressed and everything. And
Did you get to go to the fair?
Not in 1904.
She wasn't born yet.
I'm sorry. My mother did.
I wasn't even a
Yeah.
twinkle in my
Oh,
parents' eye. at
well,
that
I
time.
guess she's been dead a while.
No. Anyway, I thought that was kind of exciting, little piece of history
You bet.
to record the World's Fair. And I know my children did hear a few things from their grandma about that, but it's all kind of went down the tube. Then, of course, as I got older, we went to picnics at Forest Park. I could not tell you how we got there. We must have gone on the streetcar because there was a couple other families that would join us, and we had what we called Our Hill. And Our Hill was where we always had our picnics. It was right across from that beautiful bird cage from the World's Fair that's still there. It's kind of fun when I do go back to Forest Park and remember that. Baskets of food and just playing. I don't know what we did. Then there was that pavilion also. We got to go there and play around up there. That was fun. And all of that was from that
From the fair.
1904. Those such happy memories. We just always had to entertain ourselves. You know, I mean, and then we would, in the evening, then the men would come out from work, whatever they were doing, and we went to the Muni Opera and sat in those wonderful free seats. They had a lot of free seats then, not like now. We always had to kind of go early so we could get up as far as we could. And I'll never forget the beauty of those people on that stage, the costumes, the music. Oh my, it was just so exciting. But of course, I'm still pretty little and I would fall sound asleep. So I couldn't relate the stories. I couldn't tell you what shows we really saw. I just remember the beauty of the stage and all that color and light, music. And then my dad would always have to carry me to the car. And you know, I knew he was doing that, and I loved every minute of it.
So the whole family went?
Oh, the whole family went with some, I guess they were relatives. I really don't know.
Well, in those days, you could just do so many things that didn't cost a cent, and that's
Cost
what
a cent.
families had to do to survive.
You know, I guess that's what made it easy about growing up in those days, because not too many people had money.
Right.
So you just made do with what you had.
And everybody was pretty much in the same boat.
Everybody was kind of in the same boat. So I guess that's why we didn't really think anything of it. I mean, you just did with what you had. You played step ball, and I remember one of the biggest entertainments was, I never could figure out why that was, because we all had electricity. But the lamplighter would come to light the street lamps. I can still see that little man riding a bicycle with his torch, lighting all those lanterns on the street. I wonder how come that was like that.
Well, they were gas lights, weren't they?
They were gas lights.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
That was so pretty. Oh, that was just such fun to see.
Did you play jacks when you were a kid?
Oh, boy. And what was that Chinese game? Those marbles?
Just marbles, yeah.
Yeah, you had to do that. And
Pick up sticks?
Pick up stick, bounce the ball on the ledge and get, on the ledge of the steps in front of your house. What
Jump
else did-
rope.
Oh, yeah, jumping rope. Hopscotch. Yeah, and then later on, my cousin, I believe, for whom I was named, my cousin Rosalie, she gave me a pair of roller skates.
Oh,
So
yes.
I got to do that. And then I think my brother left a pair of ice skates behind. Now, I don't know how I wore those because he was a lot older and bigger than I was. And I'd go ice skating in the park by myself, sometimes at night, with the bonfire going, walk home through the park. I mean, what a wonderful world.
Well, hand-me-downs was also a way of life in those days.
Well,
You didn't have new clothes, new shoes, and all that stuff. You
tell
wore
me about it.
hand-me-downs.
My sisters handed me down. I got another little sister 7 years after me, and so she was kind of like a little baby doll, and that was nice. She's still here too, and I just lost one sister, but there's still 5 of us. I don't think I mentioned the fact that there were 7 girls and 2 boys. And the oldest girl died around age 10 from a childhood disease. I never did.
What was her name?
Her name was Mary. And now see, she was gone way before I was born. And she died. And then, you see, I came 4 children later. And that's, I think, another thing that added to the my poor mom and dad and my sisters, you know. That was really...
Who came after Mary?
After Mary, well, let me see. First there was Louis, then there was Mary, then there was Helen, who just passed away at age 89. Then Loretta, and Loyola, and Magdalene, and then there was Robert, who was killed. Wasn't that strange? In those days there weren't hardly any motor vehicles on the street. It was all... there was still, you know, the milkman, the iceman came with the horses and the wagons.
Is it possible he was killed by one of the wagons rather than an automobile?
Well, I've always just heard by a truck.
Oh, by a truck, okay.
What happened to Louis, Rosalie?
Louis, I never really knew my brother Louis. He was the oldest in the family. Now, he was born, let me see, about 1910 maybe, 8, 6. I should have looked this all up, but I didn't. But anyway, he was really not living as a family by the time I came along, because he was off on his own. He was a salesperson and he never lived in St. Louis, and he just died recently, also at age 93.
So you're all long-lived.
All long-lived. And you know why I think that is? I think it's first of all because we inadvertently got a lot of exercise walking. Although Mother kept us full.
You didn't live on fast food.
Oh no, we lived on homegrown vegetables and fruit that were canned, and I mean, I really think that has a lot to do with your diet and your exercise. But anyway, yes, Mother died at 94. Daddy died earlier. He was only 7 years old when he died. But Mother was 94.
Do you recall what each of them died from?
Well, I think infirmities.
Yeah. In those
I thought
days,
it
it was hard to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
What
mean,
was
it
your baby sister's name, Rosalie?
Well, it's Roberta called Bobby.
Oh.
And now I have a friend called Roberta called Bobby, which is kind of fun. In fact, it's a lot of fun. She's a wonderful person. But we also, too, you know, we had a wonderful family spirit through our parents, who were, first of all, very strict. We had a lot of respect for them. And you didn't talk back to your parents then. And Mother especially had a wonderful work habit that I didn't appreciate then, because it seemed to me like we always had to do something. There was always a job to be done. But we worked together. We learned how to share. Paid? Oh, heavens, no. That was part of family life. Everybody pitched in. And I don't know. I just don't know how to explain that on this recording. But you see, we couldn't play unless we had our work done. And man, did you learn how to work fast. And if you didn't do it right, you did it over.
With 8 children, there was so much that had to be done.
Exactly.
Just cooking and the laundry in those
And there was
days.
a day for everything.
Right.
I don't ask me what days were. I just knew. And how about the laundry?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do you recall how your mother did the laundry?
Oh my, with a scrub board
For 8 children and 2 adults.
and then the boiling of the clothes. I remember big tubs. I forgot about that. Where I could still see her pushing the clothes down with a stick to get them all. Now I don't know how she must have had a wringer of some kind.
Do
Because
you
that's
recall where she hung them to dry?
outside.
Outside.
And that was a challenge.
You bet.
There were no weather reports.
And in the winter, they'd hang out
Oh,
there
yeah,
and freeze.
frozen.
Yeah.
That was fun. I'm glad you thought about that.
I bet she made her own soap too, didn't she?
Oh, yes, lye soap.
Uh-huh.
How did they make lye soap? I don't know.
With grease and lye?
And
Oh,
ate the skin off her hands as she scrubbed those clothes.
Oh, my goodness, see, I was kind of in seventh heaven all the time, I guess. I don't believe I participated, except I do remember the lye soap.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother had beautiful hair. Oh, she had the most beautiful hair, long, and you know how they used to wear it with that beautiful bun on top of their head. And she washed her hair, I'm sure. I'm sure there was no shampoo in the bottle, or what's that other stuff?
Conditioner.
Conditioner.
We dried it in the sun.
And hairspray. And she had gorgeous hair. She really did. I remember my father had her have her hair cut, and I cried. I loved her long hair. Yeah. She had one of those hair savers. She'd brush her hair and save the hair. I wonder what happened to that hair saver.
Used to could sell it sometimes, so I don't know if that was her purpose, but.
No, I don't remember that.
They used it they would put little sprigs of hair on, tufts of hair on letters, you know,
Oh, really?
when somebody died.
Oh.
They did that. I remember my mother had those things, yeah.
I don't recall that. I just remember how pretty it was and how sad I was when it got cut.
Mm-hmm.
Because she never let it get long again. It was too old-fashioned then.
And probably so difficult to keep well.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know when we got real soap. Anyway, we learned how to cope. We learned how to share. We learned how to love each other. And my mother was a convert to the Catholic religion, and she was very intent on keeping us towing the line and keeping the faith, which I've always been grateful for. While we were working and doing things, we finally got a radio, and we used to listen to those wonderful shows. Oh my, I remember the Lone Ranger and the Shadow Nose and Amos and Andy and oh
Remember
my.
McGee and Molly?
Oh,
Jack Benny?
Jack Benny, oh yes.
Fred Allen?
Right, as we got older, all those other wonderful entertainers. No smut, no.
Never
Just-
hear a bad word
just
on them.
fun.
Never.
Then I remember when the Fox Theater opened, because we got to go there. If we had a quarter, we could go there, and you could spend the day. Nobody put you out, and I'm sure everyone my age will never forget the beauty of that theater and being able to go there. And they had this, not only did you get to see the movies, a couple of movies, a stage show with the original Rockettes, which moved to New York later. They got so good they left St. Louis. And Stan Can at the organ, and you get sing-along. You know, isn't that remarkable?
All day's entertainment.
I just recently made a visit to the Fox Theater with our group from church on a tour, and I had never really seen the Fox Theater. You go to a movie or, you know, stage show later, but oh, what a fantastic place that is.
Mm-hmm.
We just covered all seven, we only covered 7 floors, but then we got to go on the stage too. And boy, is that remarkable to stand on that stage. And the commentator that was with us said, she told us to look up at that beautiful chandelier they have hanging there, which is like 12 feet in diameter. And she said that when Bob Hope had a show there, he pointed up to the people of that, and he said, that looked like, what's her name, Channing? Carol Channing's earrings. I think that it's time for me to think of more interesting things. It's about I guess it was about the middle of the Depression, when we moved from this original house, which I am going to assume my father owned. I never asked, I never thought about it. But it was a big house. And I remember the staircase with all the little spindles we had to clean. And it had a wonderful attic. Oh, incidentally, I heard about the attic later from my sister, who said that, now remember I told you earlier, we were all born in this beautiful bedroom set, this bed that's still in existence. And I'm only relating this to tell you how things are different today, because one of my sisters tells a story about the fact that my father told them that my sisters, that they would have to go up and clean that attic, and if they cleaned it real good, he'd let them know, because he was getting a surprise for them. Now imagine this. I was the surprise. I was the surprise. My sister, we just howl laughing every time she tells that. Now that's how naive everyone was.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, that was good.
But anyway, of course I didn't know all that. And they just tell these funny stories. So we moved from there about the middle of the Depression, I guess. I was born in 1921. This is about 1931, I think. And
But you were going to
I
describe
assumed that-
more about that house.
oh, you want to hear about that house? Well, all I can remember is
How many
the
stories?
staircase, because that was a job, but also the fun we had about the big round dining room table. We always had busyness. Mother kept her girls around that table embroidering and telling stories and just being together all the time. The house itself, I honestly have very little recollection of that. I know we had inside plumbing, and I know we had electricity, and that we all shared everything, and it's a bad time in our life, you know. This is a Depression time. So we had to move from there into a flat. We moved farther north near O'Fallon Park. Well, for me that was wonderful, because I could I could go to the park, O'Fallon Park. My cousin Rosalie, again, gave me a bicycle so I could ride my bike in the park, and I could go play tennis, and just did all kinds of things all by myself. We went to church. There's a church in North St. Louis up there. We could walk through O'Fallon Park at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to 6:30 service, and we did that, and just delightful things like that happened in my life. We just
Rosalie, was your mother a good cook? And what did she fix that you liked best?
She was a wonderful cook. And bake, oh my, we always had homemade bread and something she called picket. Now, I have no idea what picket was. I know I loved it, but it was something that I think was made with ground potatoes and somehow held together in a loaf pan, and then it would be sliced and then fried on both sides, and then just put some butter on that. It was just delicious, but she made the most wonderful coffee cakes that my children still remember, because when I got older and was married and had children, Mother would come and stay with them, and she'd make them coffee cakes, especially apricot coffee cake, and they still, in fact, my oldest daughter called her one time. My oldest daughter lived in California, and she missed her grandma, she missed home, and she tells a story about how one time she called her grandma. She got so hungry for that apricot coffee cake, she thought she'd try to make it. So she called her grandma and told her that she needed the recipe for that. Well, her grandma, I guess you know what she said. Well, Mary, first of all, you make the dough. Well, that was the end of the apricot coffee cake. You make the dough. But you know, Mother made this, always kneading this bread, and out of that dough you can make coffee cake.
Mm-hmm. And again, for your grandchildren's sake, you might tell them what dough means.
Ah, dough?
Yes.
That's something you put yeast in and flour, and I don't know myself how you make dough.
Well, the yeast, it
The
was
yeast.
dependent on the yeast, and
It
had
was
to be
dependent.
allowed to set until the The,
You had to punch
Like-
it down. I
yeah.
remember punching the dough back down, and then it would rise again. and
Right.
Had to be kept at a certain
Right.
warmth. And
that was
Oh, but
what our
it's-
bread is made, and no one even knows today how it's made.
that's true.
Right.
Isn't that true? I never
Right.
thought of it.
Uh-huh.
Everything came so easy for
Yeah.
me. I never got really too
As long as
involved.
Mother made it, it came easy.
Well, it was always so good. It was
Uh-huh.
just, it was
What
always
else
there.
did she
Cakes,
make besides
beautiful cakes.
bakery goods that you liked?
Beautiful cakes, always a wonderful cake. Mother liked to eat. She liked bakery goods. And of
Did
course,
she
we
teach
did
you
too.
girls to cook or no?
Well, actually, she taught us to cook, but she never had a recipe.
No.
Of course, and I still don't. I just do the same thing that Mother told us to do.
Mm-hmm.
If a recipe has more than 4 ingredients,
Forget it.
forget it. And as my children got older, they kept kidding me. They kept saying, "Mom, there is something besides a little salt. Try pepper or something, But anyway, Daddy called it good, clean food. We always had wonderful food. And during that Depression, I can recall, as all my contemporaries can, how you could buy a big bag of fresh vegetables and what do they call it, a marrow bone,
Marylebone.
and have the most
Make soup.
wonderful soup in the world. And
The
Or
bone,
soup
you
bone.
could get the bones free
Soup bone
from the
free.
butchers.
not only were they
That-
free,
that
the
would make
butcher
your
would give
soup.
you a little hot dog. Or wiener, I think they call it.
You could make your soup with it.
Oh, I wish that we could have recorded all that when it was happening. Because they really won't believe it anyway. I don't know why I'm doing this. They think you're making
You
this
bought
all
the
up.
carrots, and they wrapped them in the store in a piece of newspaper.
Oh, I don't
And,
remember that.
and the carrots had the green end still on. Well, I came from a small town, so
Fresh.
it's probably different. Yeah, fresh. This was in the winter time. In the summertime, you went out in the garden and picked your
Well,
carrots.
I remember going to an open market. It was on Sarah and, I don't know, it was in North St. Louis. I remember going on the streetcar to pick up some vegetables by myself and fresh eggs and butter, tub butter. I remember that, yeah. Wasn't that wonderful?
And then, did you go down to the Union Market downtown?
Yeah, that was a special treat. If I was at Grandma's on Botanical, then Grandpa or my aunt, I think it was not my grandpa, my aunt, my mother's sister, sometimes she would take us to the Union Market. That was fun. I kind of liked the other one better, though. It wasn't as organized, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, we talked about the children and the way things are so different now. The thing that impresses me most about the way children are growing up is the fact that they're forever taking antibiotics. I just truly wonder what is going to happen later in life from taking all this stuff they're always taking. Because I don't remember ever seeing a doctor. A dentist later on, but a doctor? I don't know about the rest of the people in my life, in my age.
The only thing you can probably remember is cod liver oil. It
Cod
took
liver
care of
oil.
everything.
And a cold, of course. Colds have always been with us. But I remember the cure for that very distinctly. That was my parents' cure, where they put the Vicks, rubbed it on your chest, loaded you down with some itchy kind of stuff. I don't know what that was.
Wool.
Some kind of wool.
Stuffed it up your nose.
Stuffed it up the nose. Gave you a hot toddy, piled the blankets on you, and then you sweated it out. And you know what? The next morning you went to school. By golly, they weren't going to do that to me again.
You want to tell them what a hot toddy was?
Hot toddy. It was just a lemonade hot, just with sugar in it, or maybe honey. Maybe they put honey in it. I don't know.
Grown-ups would throw in a little whiskey.
Well, I wasn't going to tell them that.
Well, I think it's kind of important, Rosalie, because the saying in those days was, whiskey when you're well makes you sick. Whiskey when you're sick makes you well.
Oh, that's a clever one. I guess there was, I don't know what it was, but I know that nobody tolerated illness. I don't know. I don't know why we were so healthy, except we had all the exercise and we had all the fresh fruits and vegetables, and all the canning. Oh my, our holidays were spent getting that fruit cellar ready for canning season. Oh boy, all the mason
Washing the
jars.
jars.
Cleaning that particular room, I'll never forget that.
You want to tell what a fruit cellar was?
That was a special room in the basement, special room with all the shelves for all the fruits and vegetables that were canned.
And it stayed cool because it was
stayed cool because
underground.
it was underground,
In those
yeah.
days, no air conditioning. You
No.
had to rely on
No,
nature.
well,
Right.
we had ice box.
Mhm.
Oh, I forgot about the ice
Right.
box. Where the iceman came around and you put the card in the window, how many pounds you wanted. Wasn't that something?
And the ice box is what we today now have a refrigerator to do the same function, but you had to have the ice to keep the food from spoiling.
Uh-huh.
Well, and then there were the little compartments that were under windows sometimes, that were outside.
That's right.
And they had doors on the inside.
That's right.
And you put your food in there to keep it, which was nature's way in the wintertime of cooling things. Maybe that was before ice boxes even, you think? Do you remember that?
I remember a little, I don't know what house I was in. Maybe it was the first house.
It was
Maybe
always
they
in
had
the
something
kitchen.
like
Well, and
that.
it was probably so that you did not have to buy ice. You saved money,
Yeah.
however you could
Mhm.
save money.
That probably came to pass during the Depression.
Yeah.
There's so many fun things. I remember when we did move and lived in this flat near O'Fallon Park, there was a theater on Florissant Avenue, and it cost a dime on a Sunday afternoon to go to the theater, the show, the movie. And I think maybe my first impression was silent movie, where the little black and white camera rolled, and then they put the print so you could read what they were saying. But
That was
then-
before they actually came out with movies
With
that had the
real
sound.
movie.
Right.
But to get people to come on Sunday afternoon, they gave you a pay envelope. Well, a pay envelope, I can still see a little brown envelope, and if you were lucky, you got a dime back, or you get a nickel or a penny, and then you could buy a little piece of candy. And for a penny, you could buy one of those long licorice things that had that little piece wrapped around it, and you make that last forever. Isn't that crazy? You know, in comparison to today, the kids can't go to the movie today without a $10 bill.
Yeah?
Well, there was the other thing, they would give what they called premiums to their customers. Sometimes you'd get a dish or a
Oh,
glass.
yeah, that was like at night, I think. I don't think I ever got to go get a dish.
Oh.
I think that was for adults.
Yeah.
I'll bet that cost a little more than a dime, though.
Perhaps.
That might have been a quarter.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a wonderful life. I just, anyway, I was a special child. I grew up in a happy family, good family, loving one another, sharing the good things and the bad things. And I was very fortunate to be a special child. I truly was a special child because I was the one right there on her own, and everybody loved her and hugged her and took her places and curled her hair and tied the bows. And then my little sister came along, and I guess by that time they had her, but that was 7 years difference. So,
And you were old enough that you,
and I was old
rather
enough.
than resent her, you
I
probably
did.
accepted
Oh,
her as
no.
your very own little
But
doll.
see, we didn't play together. See, I was too old for her.
Right.
So I did a lot on my own.
You probably helped take care of her a lot.
Oh, sure, I had to do that, but I think God had a plan because I grew up, went to high school.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at the St. Alphonsus Rock High, which is called the Rock Church now. It's still in existence. The school is not there anymore. It originally, in the very, very beginning, it was a school that was run by the Christian Brothers, and they moved on out then to somewhere on Kings Highway, which was now called Sherman Park. But then I don't know who came after that. But then when I went there, my sisters, we all went there, the Notre Dame sisters, and oh boy, were they good teachers.
The best.
Because I have recently gone back to school, but I'll tell you about that later. I just mentioning them because their training came back to me just like that. It's amazing. Anyway, in school, for some ungodly reason, I was dubbed a leader, so I got to do all the fun things again. I got to have little offices like treasurer and stuff, and moved up. Got to be prefect of the sodality, crown queen of the mag, and oh my word. Everything was always, I don't know why I was so blessed, but I was. And I met some nice boys from different high schools, and that's when you just went out with a boy, and that's all you did was go have fun.
You go on picnics and
I
ride
go on
bicycles.
picnics and
Roller skating.
dances, you know, and then I met the boy that I married, and my daddy wouldn't let me go out with him because he was too old. I was still in high school and he was in college, but we changed all that. And so,
What was
anyway,
his first name?
Robert O, middle initial, Oliver McNearney. And so then I got to go to wonderful functions at St. Louis University, because that's when they had all those name bands, and got to go out to Meadowbrook Country Club, which was in North St. Louis, and all those wonderful bands.
Did
Jimmy
you
Dorsey
dance?
And, oh, yes, ma'am.
And what kind of dancing did you do?
Whatever.
Was it
Whatever.
the jitterbug and the...
Well, no, jitterbug,
Had
that
you
was
come-
kind of
yeah.
too late for me.
Okay.
I don't know, we just danced.
Uh-huh.
We didn't take lessons or anything.
Right.
I always accused my husband of doing the CBC hop, because he went to CBC, and we didn't really know how to dance, we just danced.
Where did he go to college?
He went to St. Louis University.
Mhm.
He got 2 degrees. He got a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Law degree, and then he practiced law. But I was going to tell you about how with these boys and the girls, we go on the boat, and you could dance on the boat, the JS and the St. Paul. And then what was the next one that came on? The President?
SS Admiral.
Well, maybe the Admiral come before the President, but anyway, you know, you could do that.
And they actually floated down the river.
Yes,
for
they
the-
did.
For the day or
Yes,
for
they
the
did
afternoon.
for the day.
Mhm.
And I don't know, we took our lunch along. It was just happy times, happy times. But anyway, we have to move along here because children aren't going to watch this very much longer. They're going to get tired of all this because they're going to know then that I married the dad. That was the other historical thing in my life. Oh, you know what I forgot was plastic. During the war, plastic, the invention of plastic, and Rosie the Riveter, because we got married in June of '42. Pearl Harbor was '41, and I'll never forget Pearl Harbor. I don't think any of us will forget that. My husband had just graduated from law school and had a very nice position with a nice, wonderful firm in St. Louis, and that's when Pearl Harbor came along, and all of his contemporaries, you know, at that time everybody was going to win this war. I mean, they all wanted to cooperate with in working, signing up, enlisting in the Navy, the Army, anything, the war, anything to contribute to the war effort, and also the women. This is when the women went to work. The women were housewives, wearing the little aprons and staying home. And when the war effort had to be handled, everybody had to pitch in. Well, my husband, well, he wasn't my husband then. We were still thinking about getting married. He tried to get into everything, but he was born with little vision, just light perception in one eye. So this disqualified him from anything, even the FBI. Nobody wanted him. And I don't like to say this to be facetious, but nobody wanted him, so I took him. So we decided, we planned then to go ahead and get married. So we got involved with something called Cana Conference from a wonderful Jesuit, Father Ed Dowling, and there were 4 couples of us. And we, that was the beginning of conferences and advice on what marriage was all about, what you should expect, why you have to give and share, and that was a wonderful experience. And so anyway, all of us decided that we just go ahead then and get married and live happily ever after. Well, 6 months to the day, Christmas of 42. No, pardon me, back up. We were married in 42. It had to be Christmas of 41 then. Yes, because Pearl Harbor, okay. My husband got his notice to be drafted. We lived 6 months in our little apartment over Bauman's Meat Market on Pershing and Jackson, and it was like a palace to us. Our patio was the roof of the meat market. And we were both working, of course. I was working as a secretary at Darcy Advertising Company. And, that was another interesting thing. The streetcars ran right in front of our house to go out. This was in Clayton. And we could take the streetcar all the way downtown. And the rides were very expensive. You could buy tokens, 4 for 35. That gave you 35 cents for 2 days transportation. Anyway, so we had this terrible notice that we weren't going to be able to stay together. And I remember that Christmas so well because my husband's father, Dr. Joseph McNearney, came to see us bearing gifts like the 3 wise men. He brought us a little Christmas tree and some ornaments and some lights, and that was our first Christmas, and we still have the angel that he brought at the top of the tree. It's pretty beat up. In fact, I just gave it to our daughter Mary. She wanted to keep it as a keepsake. So we had to move in with my husband's parents. One of my sisters had already moved in with my parents. Her husband was gone sooner than my husband in the service, and there was no room there, so we moved in with Bob's parents in Richmond Heights. And then Bob got down to Jefferson Barracks, and here he got an assignment to stay at Jefferson Barracks. So now we're living with his parents, and he has no transportation because when he was going to be leaving, we sold our car. We had no, it was a mess.
And you couldn't buy another one
You
then?
couldn't buy another one. So
What kind of a car was it?
Oh, it was an old Chevrolet. I think Bob paid $150 for it when he bought it, But it was a car, and it ran, but we sold it. And I don't know what he sold it for, but he was getting his affairs in order. Well, so anyway, his dad, being a doctor who was on the staff at St. Mary's Hospital, used to drive him from Richmond Heights down to Jefferson Barracks in the morning. And somehow Bob got a ride home. He would have to be there like at 6 in the morning, and he'd get home around 9 at night in these big heavy boots and this army uniform. And poor guy, he would just be so tired. And anyway, we survived.
How long was he there?
So he was there long enough. Oh, excuse me. We were married in June, and of course I got pregnant a month later, and so that oldest child was Mary, and she was born that April, and we were still here in St. Louis together, and he was there about a year and a half. He was down Jefferson Barracks because he was there just long enough for me to get pregnant again. And then he had to go over to the South Pacific. So he didn't see his son then. Robert Jr. was born. and he didn't see him till he was 13 months old. And that was really a terrible time in our lives because we were separated. The Army, in order to support me with 2 children, I had an allowance of $25 a month. Now, I'd just like to ask these young people, my children and my grandchildren and whoever listens to this, how you could live on $25 a month. Now, if it hadn't been for parents and relatives to help the servicemen and their families, what would we have done? That is something to really think about when you think you can scoff at $25. You're not sure you can have any fun at all for that. But that's what we had. And we also had, what would you have called those stamps we had for food, was
Rationing.
it? Rationing. Rationing stamps that you got.
For meat, sugar, what else? Oil.
Just about everything. Linens,
Gasoline.
you couldn't buy linens, gasoline.
Certainly couldn't have cars or tires or
No.
gasoline, yeah.
Unless you had
Unless
some,
you had
a job that was
Yeah.
essential that you be provided with an automobile, that
That's
you
how
had an
that worked.
automobile.
I had forgotten that.
Mhm.
But,
Did you still live with his folks?
oh yes,
You had to.
You had 2 babies.
I had 2 babies. Imagine that. So if it hadn't been for their love and generosity, I just don't know.
See how lucky you were?
Oh, I was.
That they
all
were
my
nice
life.
people that you liked?
I know. They
And
were
you got
wonderful.
along well with them.
And my father-in-law had a baby shower for me
Oh.
when we didn't have any money, and he came home from the office one day. Oh, he not only worked at St. Mary's Hospital as an anesthesiologist, teaching anesthesiology and writing papers on it. He was a what would you call, what's the word I'm trying to think of, when you start anesthesiology to improve it?
Research?
And he did that. Dr. McNearney did that, improved that work in anesthesiology. So because of the war and everybody leaving, the doctors had to go too, and they were drafted also.
Oh, yes.
He opened a little office to help out. So I don't think the man ever slept, I really don't. But he was a very loving, generous person and very nice to me. Just all kinds of nice things he would do, especially like, I'll never forget Thanksgiving. Bob used to always give me a beautiful mom for Thanksgiving. We always went to football games. Dr. McNearney brought me one on Thanksgiving Day. Just cute little things like that he would do. So it was quite an experience, but Bob and I survived beautifully. One of the things that we did that held us together mentally, we picked a time in the time zone when we had a special prayer that we said together. And I know that at that time we were together, and that held us together. Really, isn't that
Yes.
something?
Oh, that's
Across the
wonderful.
Through
miles.
faith, what you can do, we tried anyway. Otherwise, I don't know what would have
The
happened.
feeling was there.
The feeling was there. So then he came home to 2 children, and we had to get a house. And so he used his,
When was this?
well, let me see. He got home for Christmas of 45. And I remember going to a New Year's Eve party when he got home, and he had to wear his terrible, smelly South Pacific uniform. He wasn't too popular.
Couldn't get it cleaned, I suppose, at that time.
No.
Rosalie, how come he had to go when he had such limited vision?
Well, because they were starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. You
And
know what I
even-
mean? They took,
Yeah.
Even after a child, they were slow to take a man who
oh
had
yeah,
children. But
oh yeah. But, and we were going to have a child, but anyway, that's the way it was. And he just,
what did he do while he was in the South Pacific? Is that where he stayed?
he actually, when he got over to the South Pacific, he had applied for Officers Candidate School, all of those things that you could have gotten into, but nobody would take. But then, when he got over there, he applied, and he got to go to Officers Candidate School.
Ah.
He ended up in New Guinea, and then that's where he applied, and he got to go in, Manila. He went to officers' candidate school. And, and he had to go through all that rigorous training, see the one-eyed and, you know, the gun, shooting a gun and learning all that rifle practice and everything. And he just graduated as a second lieutenant when the war was over. And he was in the Manila Hotel watching all the firearms go off from the ships out in the water. Can you imagine?
So at least he didn't have to see active duty.
He didn't have to see active duty.
That was a blessing.
He had a terrible trip over there on the Billy Mitchell. He'll never forget that ship. I think there were bunks where they were like stacked 3 and 4 high. That's how those boys had to travel by ship. And he never really got over that because he had the same experience coming back home, and then they landed they stopped in Wetumpka, California. And that train bringing those boys back to St. Louis took forever. They didn't need them anymore. So they were always put on the side, you know.
I think another interesting thing about the facility is that they took them over and brought them back. They converted regular vacation liners
Yes, they
during
did.
the war years.
Yes,
and
they
then, of
did.
course, those very same liners are some of our Princess lines and a few of the older.
I don't think I knew that. I don't think
I only recently learned that myself. My husband, by accident, we took a trip and we were on the same
Really?
ship that he had gone overseas on. But like you say, they built the bunks like
Stacked them up.
Stacked them up just like you see some of these prisoners of war stacks.
Mm-hmm. Pretty grim.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty grim. So that was an experience, and we had to find a house, and so we shared a house. We bought a flat, 2-story place, 2 homes, one, you know, and Bob used his, they had a GI Bill of Rights where you could make a loan for 6%, and we thought that was great. So we had our house, and
Where was that?
that was in Richmond Heights. Let's see, the house isn't there anymore. It was a flat on Morelands Drive. That's on the south side of Clayton Road, and that was Little Flower Parish. Anyway, so then Mary, the oldest, went, and Robert Jr. went to school there, and we had to move from there because we kept having children. We had, let's see, we had Mary and Robert, and then we had Michael, and then we had Jim.
What year was Michael born?
Well, let me see now. Mary was born in 43, Bob was born in 44, Michael was born in 46. And then Jim, I should have written that all down. Jim must have been 48 or 49. Bill was 52, and Nancy was 54, John 56. And then 5 years difference, Sherry was, the last child was born in 61. So there were 6 boys and 2 girls. But from when we had to move from Morelands Drive, it was still a time when people would not rent to family with children. Well, we had just thought about moving, and it was one of the children's birthdays. And this flat we bought was pretty dilapidated. In fact, it was so dilapidated that you could see daylight through the crack in the dining room wall. And we were going to have to do something about that. And somebody came to the door. I had decorated the dining room. There was no furniture in the dining room, but I put some crepe paper up on the light, you know, and faced it to the wall. And kids are going to have a little birthday party. And this man came to our front door and wanted to know if we would like to sell our house. And I said, well, we've been kind of thinking about it, but we hadn't decided. He said, well, I have a couple out in the car. Now, this is the way it was in those days. I have a couple out in the car, and we're trying to find a flat for them in this area, would you mind if I brought them in? And I said, well, I'm getting ready for a birthday party, but, come on in. Ha! They bought the house. I don't know. I didn't say there's a crack in the wall. You didn't have house inspections and all that good stuff like they have now. And they bought the house. Well, now we had to move out at a certain time.
Did you live upstairs?
We lived on the first floor.
We lived, yeah.
And there was the parents of this friend of ours that lived on the second floor. So, oh, and by the way, when we moved in there, we had a furnace where my husband had to put coal in the furnace. And then we got together and shared the cost of a stoker, where you could just get it fed in automatically, and somebody had to still load the stoker. But anyway, we didn't have hot air heater and all that good stuff.
They would dump the coal through a window into your
Yeah.
basement,
Yeah.
and you had to make sure that the
Loaded into this hamper of some kind, and that fed into the furnace. I don't know. Anyway, where was I? I got off on the stoker.
about selling your home.
Kids ought to know about that.
Right, those are what's
We
important.
didn't have this automatic thermostat and stuff.
After you sold this, the house, the flat, then.
Oh, then we have the problem of moving out, and we now have 5 children. There were, everybody has their own bedroom now. They were all in one bedroom, and in one bathroom, and nobody rents to people with children. Well, by the grace of God.
Housing was still very
Oh.
difficult to get.
Oh.
That's why they could afford it, and there were no laws against it.
I guess that's why that couple wanted our house.
Sure.
Because they couldn't rent either. I don't know. But anyway, we did a lot of praying, and it seemed like the night before we had to move that my husband found a place to rent back up by O'Fallon Park, from Richmond Heights to O'Fallon Park. So we moved in there on the second floor, and we promised that lady we weren't going to move. I didn't think we would either, because it's a lot of work to move. Well, 2 months later, this friend of ours found a house for us for sale. Now this is in St. Roch's Parish, and it's still in the city that's east of Skinker on Waterman. And there was a house right behind it, and it would be so great because my children could just cross over into the schoolyard and go to school, no streets to worry about. And we moved. Well, I think that lady is still, if she remembers us, is still mad at us for moving out. But she had a renter. But anyway, I'm sure she must have rented to somebody else without children. It was okay. But
So you moved to Waterman.
so there we, Pershing
Pershing.
Avenue. The church, the school was on Waterman, just east of Skinker.
What number was that, do you remember?
6051 Pershing. Never forget it.
Sure.
It was great. But it got kind of crowded there too, because then we had another child and another child. Anyway.
And there weren't 2 bathrooms in any of those.
No,
hotels.
no, but it was very convenient. It was wonderful, and lots of good friends, and the kids had a good time, and that was wonderful. But then a friend found a house for us west of Skinker in an area called Parkview Place, and they had heard this house was going to be for sale, so my husband went to see about that, and that was heaven. That was one of the prettiest houses that I've ever had the opportunity to be in. It was a huge brick, French colonial. It was built by Mr. Koppler for his daughter, Mrs. Probstein, at the time of the Park Plaza being built. And we had a lot of goodies from the Park Plaza in that house. We had marble hallways and marble, and all the walls were, they were plaster, of course, but they were all covered in canvas so that you never had any of those wonderful, horrible cracks. And there were like, 6 or 7 bedrooms and 3.5 baths and a half bath on the first floor, and a side entry, and
Do you recall what you
nice
had to
big
pay
yard.
for it?
Oh yes, something fabulous like $38,000. Yeah,
What number was this on Parkview?
6304. The name of the street was Westminster. 6304 Westminster. It was I guess they call them subdivisions now. Called Parkview Place, and a lot of those houses were built around. Well, when did they build Park Plaza? You know, late 30s maybe. or maybe after the war. I'm used to, no, it was maybe very early 30s because
Yeah.
the house was not new when we moved into it. It had a nice big yard with beautiful flowery trees and flowers and everything. And that yard got to be the neighborhood baseball field because I always had the children at our house.
Who came after John?
John, Jerry was the last one, G with a G. He was born in 61. And he now has 5 little boys of his own and lives in the planet. And I'm going to go visit him for Christmas.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But anyway, that was a wonderful neighborhood. Kids could walk to school. They didn't have to walk a mile. You could take a bus anywhere you wanted. And it's the Delmar area, which is now called Blueberry Hill. Is that the name of it? But then it was
Well,
like...
that's a bar. Blueberry Hill.
Blueberry Hill? What do they
The
call it?
Loop. The Loop area?
The Loop area?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a bar. I didn't know that.
Blueberry Hill, yeah, it's a bar.
Okay.
What school did they go to?
St. Roch's, R-O-C-H,
Oh.
R-O-C-H apostrophe S.
That's on
That's on the...
Rose something, isn't it?
I beg your pardon. I didn't hear you.
The street?
That's on Waterman.
What? Oh, is it?
Yeah, the
Okay.
church and school are on Waterman. And we were
Mhm.
this church, the street behind them on Pershing. But the classes were getting very big there. And our Nancy, the one that was born in 54, she made her first communion there with the boy she's married to now.
Oh,
They
my.
both at St. Roch's. And anyway, the classes were getting so large that, like 60, 65 kids in the classroom. And we discovered that our children were not getting all the education that we'd like for them to have. And those wonderful teachers just didn't have time
There's
for
no
all those
way.
kids. So they all went to private schools. And let's see, how many? The 4 boys went to Barrett Hall, B-A-R-A-T Hall, which is run by the Sacred Heart Nuns. And then the daughter, Nancy, went to right there. It's called City House for Girls. The older children had already gone on to high school. So we managed through that, but the kids both...
You mentioned earlier that you didn't get much chance to travel because it cost so much to get your children through school.
Exactly, yeah. Yes. We always had everything we needed. We never could boast of an abundance, but we were always very well cared for. Had a lovely home, never been homeless, never been hungry. It was just wonderful. Everything was wonderful.
And you were able to raise all your children in that one home then?
In that one home. And then as the older children went on their own, we moved out to the county in a smaller, not smaller, but one ranch home. I wanted to get off of all that marble. It gets kind of hard to walk up and down those steps, No first floor laundry and a lot of work, big house, a lot of work. I was fortunate while we lived there, though. I had very nice help. There was a nice lady that came 3 times a week, and I needed that. I mean, it was, but now the young people are driving their children everywhere, and they're all involved with baseball and all those sports activities. We had some of that, but we didn't do like they do now. If they played baseball or football, the boys, it was always in the neighborhood. Maybe Forest Park, because they could walk to Forest Park. So it was a happy time, very happy. Children could walk to the Woolworths and the theater.
All of them were
grocery
well?
store. All well.
No health problems?
No, happy family. I had 6 boys and 2 girls, and I survived, and I'm here to tell it. Anyway, you know what we forgot to mention to our family was silk stockings that we used to wear before the war. And after the war is when plastic came along, and then they had the nylon pantyhose, and boy, were they valuable. I forgot about that. That's a historic event.
Right.
It was a
And
birth.
when you got a snag, you carried nail polish to To
keep
it
the run.
keep it from
I
running.
forgot about that. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Those silk stockings were pretty, but boy, were they fragile.
And the first ones had a seam up the back of the leg for some
Oh,
reason.
yes.
And you
Yes.
wanted that seam, it had to be
Try
perfectly
to try to keep the
straight.
seam straight. Well, you have a wonderful recollection of those things.
Well, I'm a little younger than you.
Oh, I think a lot. Anyway, so girls, what can I say except it's been a very happy life for me. Somehow or other, I've always been in the right place at the right time. I married the right person. It was a hard choice to make.
Do you want to tell about your husband now? And when he...
Well, that's kind of bad, you know, because he is still a wonderful person, except he's not himself. He practiced law for all those years and always did a lot of pro bono work, always helped people, always belonged to a charitable organization to help the poor people, which I do now, by the way.
What organization are you active with?
The same as he was, St. Vincent de Paul Society. For me, everybody has their favorite charity. I particularly like that one. There is no overhead, there's no advertising, it's all volunteer.
Well, the other thing that you mentioned is that you are back in school now. And
Oh, do you think I ought to tell him that?
Very much so, yes.
Well, Bob started going downhill mentally, I would say maybe 7 years ago. This is 1999. We celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary in 92, and just about that time he just didn't seem to be like himself. You know, this is a gradual dementia that happens to older people sometimes, unfortunately. And he never thought it was a good idea to go to a doctor. So I finally did get him to a doctor on the pretense of going for a flu shot, and the doctor gave him an examination.
Even though his father was a doctor.
Well, actually, I think it's because his father was a doctor.
Didn't need to
Because
go, yeah.
Well, we were never sick. I never saw a doctor. Did you ever see a doctor? I mean, and Dr. McNearney, as I said, if I had persisted, he'd give him a little piece of an aspirin or something. But his father used to tell everybody, you shouldn't go to a doctor, they're just practicing. Well, my husband liked that line, so he didn't want to go to a doctor. But anyway, he began deteriorating mentally, and there was not really much I could do about it, except pray. And I knew that someday the Lord would send something my way to help me. And so he took a bad fall, and he ended up in St. Luke's Hospital with a broken pelvis and cracked vertebrae. And from there, now this was February of 97 when this happened. And from there, we took him to Del Mar Gardens of Chesterfield, where he is. He has never been out of there because with this serious dementia, I was told that is very bad to take them
You
home.
couldn't have him at home.
Because you can't do that. I couldn't have him at home. I don't care to go into tape on all the little reasons why, except they're very difficult to take care of. It's an impossible situation. If you had them at home and had around-the-clock help, I would have had to move out. So it was one or the other. And he has very good care at Del Mar Gardens. There's nothing I can do but pray that one of these days the Lord will heal him through the Lord's mercy. And until that day, I had to make a life of my own. Now, through faith, family, and friends, you can work this out. First, it takes a strong faith. You have to believe it. You have to turn it over to God, okay? And you have help from the people of the nursing home that help you. They give you the pat on the back, the hug, advise you. I used to go there. I was there all the time. I had to do the laundry. They do the laundry, but I had to do that. You have to do those things. And then you kind of see that this isn't doing anything.
You gradually have to
It's-
release them.
It's a very gradual process if you love someone, because you think you're going to make them better. And they go through the therapy, and he would not mentally learn how to walk. So he has not walked, or he's been immobile all this time. It's going to change. His mental attitude gets terrible at times and good at other times. So you learn to play, you have to play the game, I call it. He knows me, he knows his children. They can be gone for those that live out of town a couple of years, and they come in and, well, hi, how are you, you know? It's bad. But I had to make a life of my own, right? So one of my dear friends suggested that I go to school. And I said, well, you know, that's a good idea. That's something I've always wanted to do because I never went to college. That was not a given in my day. And so my daughter, Nancy, helped me. We went to, I guess I better not mention the name of that college. But anyway, I was just going to audit and signed up for a course, just English courses. You take the basics, you know, and start over. And the evening that her husband came home from work, she told him what we did that day. She said, you'll never believe I helped my mother enroll in college today. And so he asked her where, and she told him. And he said, well, you know, this particular son-in-law of mine is doing some work with the people at Missouri Baptist College. My son-in-law is the development director for CBC, who is going to build a new school next to Missouri Baptist College, so he has to do business with them about various things. And he said, well, you know, I was just with this man from Missouri Baptist College today, and he told me they have a program for senior citizens where you can have free tuition. And so guess how fast I went down to this Missouri Baptist College and got my money back from the other college, and that's where I go to school. Well, I call it my Saving My Sanity School because it has been the most wonderful experience I could ever advise anybody to do in my situation. The professors are wonderful. The students couldn't be nicer.
What course of study are you following?
Well, just basic English courses. I started out in English 103, I guess, you know. And then I had to take the mechanics of English. You had to learn how to do things, which I knew from those Notre Dame nuns, but you have to get that. That's
They
all
refresh
basic.
your memory.
And then I took, oh yes, then I took a computer course, and then I didn't learn anything because I didn't have a computer. So then I had to spend some of the children's inheritance. I kept telling them I had to buy a computer, and then I took another course, and then I called my grandchildren and said I need help. And so I've got most of my help from my grandchildren. And then I took world type literature, and this past semester I just had my last exam yesterday for the semester, and it was in art history, art appreciation, and if everybody could take that, they'd be the luckiest people in the world. It was just absolutely delightful.
And your exam caused you to lose your 15 minutes of fame because Channel 5 would have come out and teletyped your story, except they would not come.
With the,
They could only come when you were taking your exam.
That would have been quite a surprise for my family.
Wouldn't that have been lovely?
So anyway, that's what I do now. And I took watercolor classes and drawing classes, and just keep real nice and busy and keep your mind occupied.
How often do you go to school?
Well, I only take this one course a semester, and you go, this semester it was only 2 days a week, and the other semesters, now when I start again in January, it'll be 3 days a week. And it's just for an hour or an hour and a half, depending on the course.
Yeah.
So, but I have a lot of homework. I have lots to do.
When did you move from your home to wherever?
Oh, to Conway Meadows? 13 years ago.
Oh.
We moved from our house in Town and Country, big ranch house, lovely. Kids were all gone, so we moved to condominium, and it's really nice, very nice.
Well, now, we lost you. It's between
Westminster.
Westminster and your condominium now.
Oh, we moved from the big house out to town and country.
Oh,
Sorry about that. I
And-
forgot that.
and where did you live there?
We lived in a place right across from the Principia on Clayton Road. It's a subdivision called Chapel Hill Estates. And we had a lovely ranch home there. I think we did talk about how I had to get off of that marble from
Yes.
Westminster.
But you didn't
we
say
never-
where you went.
Yeah. I should have told you because that was very nice. Our children were all kind of leaving. It was very nice. Now that's when I had to start driving the three youngest ones because they were still had to go to school.
Oh, well,
When did you originally start driving? Do you
When I
recall?
started driving,
Uh-huh.
oh, I started driving when Highway 40 was being built. My husband wasn't my husband then, but he let me. He was teaching me how to drive on the. It wasn't open yet.
And it was unusual for a woman to drive.
Exactly.
even yet.
And then he left, and then I had to go
You had
and
to.
get in the car, and I had to do it. Boy, was it an experience.
Uh-huh.
No driver ed.
No, that's for sure. Well, the tape is about to end. Is there any last words that you'd like to say to your children or your grandchildren?
Well, I could just tell them what my three greatest possessions are.
It's good.
My husband, my children, my friends. And I classify that as faith, family, and friends. I tell everybody I have a disease called the 3 F's, and they are my most precious possessions.
That's wonderful. Well, we're so glad you've come to do this today, and I'm sure your family is going to be thrilled that you have. So we just want to thank you on behalf of Oasis, and we hope that you have many more good years to come.
Well, I want to thank you for having me, doing this for me.
Do you have any last words, Jeanette?
it's been lovely.
It sure has.
You've been a very fortunate mother and daughter.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Yes, I have.
And I think your family is fortunate too in having you.
Well, thank you. But see, people like Oasis. I was just introduced to Oasis with the watercolor class down at Shaw's Garden.
Yeah.
A friend of mine is a member, and she said, "Why don't we go down to Shaw's Garden?" I said, "Okay." So there was a nice teacher. Her name was Nanette. I don't know her last
Yeah.
name.
Well, that's the nice part about Oasis,
Oasis.
which most people don't even know that it exists. It's been in existence for 18 years. But
I've just been introduced.
right. And it is so important, and that's probably why, again, you will stay well for many years to come. You have interest, and you answer those interests with activities.
Don't sit home and wait for the kids to call you.
That's that's the only attitude to have. So
That's what you have to
you're
have.
very
They
fortunate.
call me anyway, but.
Right, yeah. But they don't need for you to have to depend on them. So
No, they're
it's-
wonderful. They're
yeah.
just grand.
So looks like your life will end as it started, with a great deal of pleasure.
I hope so.
All right.